Good afternoon, English 1 students and parents. I come to you today just to make sure that you all have an understanding of what's going on this week as we end up the 5th 6 weeks. And I want to say I hope you had a wonderful Sunday with your family. It's beautiful weather, and I know we're all going through some trying times and some different circumstances, but as I've told your students, I do believe that we have an opportunity to come out of this situation better than before. And while we do think education is important, and while I definitely want your students to do the best that they can on the assignments, please know that I'm here for you. And if you're having any difficulty, I'm all about mercy and grace, because I know that I need the same thing. So if you're having any trouble submitting assignments and you need a paper copy, you need an extension, just please reach out and let me know. You can do that through email. You can also do that through the Schoology messaging. If that's something you're having difficulty with, is Schoology period, please call the school so that I can get that message and we can find another way for you to complete the work and be able to complete the 5th 6 weeks. Okay, so as we go forward, I want to just make sure that you're aware this is a very busy screen. So I'm going to first tell you that this is an announcement about grades. So some things to remember is that all work is no longer going to be considered late in any work, okay? Submit that work by Tuesday, April 14th. If it's a Schoology assignment, submit it online. If you are doing paper copies, submit those to the school so they can get those back and get those graded and be able to submit grades. And because we're going to have your grades ready to view on Hack by Friday, April 17th, you should be able to see your 5th 6 weeks grades. If something happens and you can't get those assignments in, please let us know. We will do an incomplete if we need to, but we know that that's not always the best thing for the student as far as UIL qualifications and being ready to, if we get to come back to school in May, so that you can participate right away. So please do your best to get those turned in to me by Tuesday, April 14th, and so those can be updated. We'll make sure that everyone has at least 5 grades. I know you've read Ms. Parkerson's email, and I'm following those guidelines, and I'm giving grace and mercy where I can. Any place that you have a 0 because you missed an assignment, or maybe you don't have enough assignments because you missed school and you missed some of those assignments that we did in class, then you can do weeks 1 and 2 at home learning, and those can replace some low grades from the 5th 6 weeks. I encourage anyone who scored poorly the 4th 6 weeks. Let's say you failed the 4th 6 weeks. I encourage you to go back and do those assignments which are opened up, because that gives me an opportunity to maybe use those assignments somewhere else where you may have struggled, so that you can make the highest grade possible and get your credit for the first or the second semester of English. Because the only way, if you look over here to this side note here, remember, passing English 1 this year means you never have to take the STAR test for English 1. So you don't want to have to take English 1 in summer school or any other, or do credit recovery, because then you will then not be exempt from the STAR test. So do your best to pass those classes. I'm going to do my best to give you all of the credit I can give you for what you're doing, okay? Make sure that if you had an academic achievement grade, we only had 1 for each course. For the pre-AP students, you had the literary analysis portfolio. You still need to turn that in, okay? It is still due. There's not a replacement for that. Neither is there a replacement for the missing script project if you are one of the 4 people who didn't turn that in. And I think I have about 3 people who have not submitted the literary analysis portfolio. those assignments cannot be replaced by those simple projects, the weeks 1 and 2 at home learning, because they're not of the same caliber. Now, I may count them as not as academic achievement grades, depending on which is in the best interest of you, if you read that email from Ms. Parkerson, for your 5th 6 weeks average, but those are still due. You can take a picture and attach it to a Schoology message or attach it to an email. I am going to look for a way for you to text it to me. If that's the only way you know how to send a picture, then I'll help you with that. I think there's a way that I can do that with a program that will allow me to keep my number still private, but that you can text it to me if that's the only way you can figure it out. Okay, I want to help you in that regard. It might even be that you attend the Zoom meeting that we're having live and you show me your work there, and I could do a screenshot of it from our Zoom meeting. So that's an option, because we'll find a way for you to get your work in if you have completed the work. Okay, so academic achievement grades, missing script project for on-level English 1, and the literary analysis portfolio for pre-AP English 1. Those are still due. You have until Tuesday, April 14th to turn those in. I am going to do everything I can to make sure, if you are trying, that you're going to pass the 5th 6 weeks. So please let me know what's happening with you, so that if you have a special circumstance, I want to take that into account. Okay? All right, so the next thing that I want you to be aware of, besides 5th 6 weeks, is that I have noticed on when I was grading the short answer questions that some of you may need a reminder. I'm going to move my little screen here. Okay. It might need a reminder of what I mean by APE. That means answer, prove, explain. So, in the question that you did from week 3, it asked, how does the author use the example of Michael Scott and Romeo and Juliet to develop his ideas? So, you should use some words from that question. Like, this is the answer in a complete sentence. The examples from Michael Scott and Romeo and Juliet show 2 different forms of love at first sight. That's the main concept that's talked about in the article. But then I didn't stop there, because that's not proof. I need proof. And what follows in this tan color, peach color, is the proof, my specific example. It can be a quote or a specific detail. So I'm going to include something about Michael Scott that was mentioned in the article, and also Romeo and Juliet. So it says, in the Michael Scott example, love at first sight seems ridiculous because the character had never even met the model he mourned. I mean, it seemed crazy, right? Because in The Office, it's a comedy. It's supposed to be ridiculous. Then he mentions Romeo or Juliet. So, however, in Romeo and Juliet, love at first sight seems to be more believable because of the intense conversations between the 2 characters. Both of these things are specific examples from the text. So, if you're having trouble answering those questions, you might need to stop answering the question and go back to the article to help you. You can resume what you've started, or I've even allowed for multiple submissions, up to 2 submissions on that Schoology assignment, to get that specific information, because I'm scoring those as a 0, 1, 2, and 3. And if you only have the answer, that's only a 1. If you have the answer and you have proof, that's only a 2. In order to get the 3, you have to add the E, which is explanation. So here's the explanation in this pink color, including well-known examples, one mocking and one more realistic, helps the author depict 2 views of the concept of love at first sight. That is a fully developed answer, and we have been doing that in class since the beginning of the school year, okay? So this is a review. You're just going to have to put in a little bit more effort to write and complete sentences, and that's a skill you're going to need to take with you to English 2. So we don't want to lose that skill. Do your best to answer and complete sentences. Here's the example that you can look back at if you need to, okay? So moving on. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure I reviewed. Next week, coming up, you will get the assignment beginning Monday at noon is when the assignment will open up. and we are talking about persuasive and rhetorical devices. Okay, so we're going to start with the foundation of 3 techniques. Logos, which is when an author or someone tries to persuade you using logic or common sense. Frequently, you'll find facts and statistics in those. That's logos. Logos, logic. Then another technique is pathos. That's when the person who's trying to convince you uses emotion, and that can be fear or anger or sympathy or humor. Okay, like that commercial. There's a really great video that you have as pre-reading before you read the article. It uses a great commercial that makes us feel emotionally attached to the concept. So that's pathos. And then lastly is ethos. And that's where they depend on credibility. So who do you recognize? Is it a professional? So like if it's a toothpaste commercial, they'll have a dentist, the real dentist that's speaking. That's ethos. Or maybe famous people. So if Michael Jordan is selling shoes, you can trust him because he knows about basketball shoes because he was famous. He is a famous basketball player. They might also use famous symbols that represent concepts that we trust in or believe in. Okay, so ethos, those 3 things. All right, I'm not going to teach the whole lesson. Moving on to the next thing is, lastly, if you can make it at all, try to come to the Zoom meetings that we have on Tuesdays. I'll post the schedule in Schoology for each course. And with that being said, I'm going to say goodbye because I've already talked too long. I miss your smiling faces. I even miss your sleepy faces. I miss those who put the hoodies on their heads. I miss those who want to have their cell phones out all the time during my class. I just miss all of my people. And I can't wait to see you again in the flesh. I hope you're doing well, and I hope to see you soon. Goodbye and God bless.